Back in the summer of 2013, a friend of mine told me to go check out some trailers for an upcoming web series called RWBY. Between the stellar combat sequences and the heart-pounding soundtrack, I was definitely intrigued by a lot of what I saw. But it wasn't until the yellow trailer, when a certain blonde-haired brawler strut her way onto the screen, that I was actually hooked. You know, I think I might have a type. Yang was simply a delight to watch. She wasn't just confident and powerful, she was fun, something that the other three trailers were sorely lacking. From that moment all the way to today, Yang has consistently been my favorite character in the series. Watching how she perseveres and grows over the course of the show has been both interesting and inspirational. So today, I would like to talk about Team RWBY's sunny little dragon, Yang Xiao Long. Early in the series, Yang comes across as a relatively straightforward character. She exudes confidence every step of the way, and she's more than willing to stand her ground and accept any challenge in front of her. At the same time, she's a kind and lighthearted person. She makes friends easily, and is a reliable comrade to have on your side. We can see how she came to develop these characteristics by looking at her childhood, a topic that she discusses with Blake in Volume 2 and Weiss in Volume 5. As a child, Yang lost two mothers, her birth mother Raven, and later, her stepmother Summer. With her father frequently away from home, Yang found herself acting as the primary guardian to her younger sister, RWBY. That is an immense amount of pressure for someone so young, and it forced her to fulfill the role of a parent rather than a child. That confidence and strength, her desire to be a reliable presence in her sister's life, her fun-loving and friendly nature, they all stem from how she believes a guardian should act. It may not have been the most pleasant of backgrounds, but we can see how those circumstances molded the person Yang is today. That is, until Volume 3. In this volume, we get to watch the Vital Festival Tournament, a series of battles between students from each of Remnant's nations and schools. Throughout this competition, Yang is the most prominent member of Team RWBY, even managing to win a 2v1 against Team F.N.K.I to advance her team to the finals. Her teammates choose her as the strongest member of their group, trusting her to be their representative in the final matches. Yang's confidence and pride are at their peak for the first half of the season, but in the second half, all of it comes crumbling down. Following her match against Mercury, Emerald uses her semblance to trick Yang into attacking him again. Because it was an illusion that only Yang could see, nobody else knows what prompted Yang's attack, instead believing that she intentionally and ruthlessly assaulted a helpless opponent. Later on, when the villains begin their proper assault on Beacon, Yang doesn't hesitate to join the battle. When she sees Adam fighting Blake, she charges in to defend her friend without a second thought, and is handily defeated by him, losing an arm in the process. And once the battle is over, Blake, the very friend she rushed in to protect, abandons her and runs away. Yang was introduced as a confident and powerful character, one who knew pain and strove to protect her friends from it. And yet, over the course of just a few episodes, every single defining characteristic of hers was shattered. After her battle with Mercury, we see a character once portrayed as reliable, now doubted by pretty much everyone. Her defeat to Adam robbed her of not only her power, but her confidence in her ability to protect her friends. And Blake's disappearance reignited the trauma she experienced from having her loved ones abandon her as a child. By the end of the volume, Yang is a mere shell of the character we first met during that trailer. When we see her again in Volume 4, she makes a comment that, following the battle, she's lost a piece of herself, that a part of her is gone. The obvious interpretation is that she's referencing her missing arm, but in many ways, it also represents how much of her established identity was invalidated by those experiences. It was depressing to watch the character I loved go through all those hardships. But it's that drastic deconstruction of her character that allows her to grow and mature as much as she does. Yang was a fun character, yes, but she was far from perfect. Her fighting style and mental attitude when faced with a challenge was normally to charge in and confront it head on. Fear is a word she doesn't seem to understand, and that makes her reckless. She abuses her semblance, which allows her to become more powerful with each hit she takes, meaning that she often tanks her opponent's attacks willingly rather than defend against them. It's a powerful and frightening style, but it's definitely a glass cannon, leaving her with countless openings and vulnerabilities during each of her fights. She never really thinks through any of her actions, and this doesn't only apply to her fighting style, but to her life as well. In Volume 2, for example, she talks about how she didn't really put a lot of thought into becoming a huntress or what it entailed. Yang was fearless and hot-headed, and those characteristics came back to bite her. However, during Volumes 4, 5, and 6, she's forced to confront those flaws and learn to overcome them. During her rehabilitation, she spends a lot of time training with her father, Tai. He uses their sessions to emphasize the importance of keeping her cool and using her head, not just during a fight, but for whatever problem she's presented with. To use his words, Yang acts as if the easiest way to tackle an obstacle is to go through it. But by taking a moment to think about a situation, you can potentially find another way around that obstacle. It's a lesson Yang takes to heart, and we see her implement it almost immediately, both in her decision to track down Raven to get to RWBY more quickly, and in her first battle against the bandits. Once Yang does track her mother down, we see this idea reiterated once more. During their discussions, Raven uses their brief time together to emphasize the importance of thinking through the path she's on and asking questions rather than just blindly following orders. They may have used different words, but both of Yang's parents use their interactions to emphasize the benefits of using her head, rather than recklessly charging forward. But while this lesson came relatively easily to her, we see her struggle more when it comes to dealing with her fear and overall lack of confidence. She fears the idea that she's weak, and she fears the idea of being perceived as weak by others. As someone who is the most traditionally powerful member of her team, Yang's absolute defeat at the hands of Adam shook her image of herself to its very core. We see this through nightmare sequences, where she's completely helpless to defend herself, and through her visible shaking over the course of several volumes. Not only that, but the people around her reinforce this idea by trying to treat her as someone who needs protection, rather than the protector she strove to be. For example, in Volume 6, we see Blake promise to protect Yang if Adam ever appears again. It's a statement that's meant to reassure her, to make her feel safe. But all it does is make her feel weak. But in spite of her fear, Yang still manages to move forward. Rather than being completely fearless, she acknowledges those feelings and strives to overcome them. I think Yang puts it best when she confronts Raven at the end of Volume 5 in order to claim the Relic of Knowledge. During this sequence, Yang is visibly frightened, with Raven pointing out that she's shaking like a scared little girl. Nevertheless, Yang stands her ground, proclaiming that while she is scared, she's still standing there, and that she'll do the same when facing Salem. And, sure enough, when she gets that chance in Volume 8, she does. Well, I guess she wasn't exactly standing for very long, but you get the point. Yang is no longer fearless. Instead, she's a character who acknowledges fear and pushes forward in spite of it. Perhaps the most iconic display of her character growth is her second confrontation with Adam. She enters the fight as the Protector, defending Blake, and she charges in full force like we might expect of her. But she isn't the same character we saw at the beginning of the show. When Blake reveals Adam's semblance, that he can absorb energy from the attacks he blocks with his sword, Yang changes up her fighting style entirely. Rather than simply letting fists fly, she plays defense, dodging Adam's attacks and waiting for openings where she can strike him directly. She's very clearly afraid of Adam during the fight, but she doesn't let that fear stop her from trying to protect her friend. She doesn't abuse her semblance like she has in the past, instead waiting until the final moment when she has created an opportunity to land a solid hit. Perhaps the most significant moment comes when Blake declares that Yang is not protecting her, and that she is not protecting Yang. Rather, the two of them are protecting each other. There's an important implication in this line, especially considering her previous statement about how Yang needed protection. Here, we see that Blake once again views Yang as an equal, a strong ally that she can rely on. Once the fight is over, Blake promises that she won't leave again, and Yang, as hurt as she was, decides to trust her. In this fight, every ounce of Yang's character growth is on full display, and what we see is Yang in her prime, confident, brave, and burning brighter than anyone else. I think the best part of Yang's character development is that it's not a complete 180. She doesn't abandon all of the characteristics that made her such an appealing character in the first place. She's still powerful, confident, and fun, but she's learned to balance her more reckless inclinations. She puts more thought into her actions rather than just blindly charging forward. Instead of being completely fearless, she acknowledges that fear and keeps pushing on in spite of it. Most RWBY fans probably know that Yang is based off of the fairy tale character of Goldilocks, and we can definitely see its influence in her character progression. She went from being a hot-headed brawler to a cold and distant girl, all before finding that proper balance that allowed her to truly shine. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like down below. And if you'd like to see more from me, I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know down in the comments if you have any characters, series, or topics you'd like me to discuss in the future. Until next time, this is Paradigm, and I hope you have a brilliant day.